lesson 4-6. Today we're going to be talking about fractions and percents. Now, the first word that we're going to need to know is the word ratio. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying it's a form of a fraction. It can be written in several different ways. The first way a ratio can be written is 9 out of 10. You can also write it with a colon, saying 9/10. And then you can have it in fraction form, 9/10. And these ratios can be written as percents. For example, this fraction, 9/10, it can be turned into 90%. So basically, we're going to be talking about how do we do that? How do we go from fractions to percents and from percents to fractions? Alright, so if we were going to go from a ratio or a fraction to a percent, you would start with your fraction. In this case, our fraction is 9/10. Now, you can do it two ways. The first way that you can go ahead and put it into percent form is by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So if I did 9 divided by 10, I would divide out and I'd figure out that 0.9 or 9/10 is my decimal. Then I would need to go ahead and move my decimal 2 places to the right. Because if you're going from a decimal to a percent, you just move it 2 places to the right. So we move it 2 places and we find that it's 90%. Alright, now the second way that you can change a ratio or a fraction to a percent is by looking at the denominator. Now in this case in particular, the denominator is 10. And that is an easy way to be able to get hundreds. Because if you can get this fraction with a 100 in the denominator, then whatever's in the numerator is your percent. So for example, in 9/10, you can see that in order to change 10 to 100, you just multiply by 10. So I'm going to multiply both my numerator and denominator by 10. So instead of having 9/10, I now have 90/100. So now, all I would have to do is realize that it's 90 out of 100, which is 90%. So you could do it either way. So you could do it by dividing and then moving your decimal to make your percent, or you can go from changing the denominator to 100, and that is your percent, whatever the numerator is. So that kind of just depends, especially if this denominator is easily turned into 100. Like if it's 50 or 25 or 10, those can easily be changed to 100. So that will be probably, you'll just have to test it out to see which one is easier for you and be able to see which one will give you the right answer. Alright, now in this example, we're going to go from a percent to a ratio. So we're going to be going from a percent to a fraction, a simplified fraction. So in this case, we have 80%. Now, any percent can be written as a fraction by putting it over 100. Because anytime we're talking about a percent, we're talking about a part of 100. So if we're talking about 80%, we're talking about 80 out of 100, or 80/100. So then all I would have to do is simplify. So I just saw, okay, they have a 10 in common, I'm going to take that out. Okay, they have a 2 in common, I'm going to take that out. And then I have 4/5, or 4/5, and I realize that that is a simplified fraction. So that is a fraction form of 80. So 80% is 4/5 in fraction form. Now let's go ahead and do that several more practice problems. Alright, let's look at our first example. This example, we're going to be going from a ratio to a percent. So in this case, we have 45 out of 100, which is written as 45/100, because both of those are just two different forms of writing the same thing. Now, since we have our numerator over 100, that means that our percent is just 45. So this percent is just 45%. That will be our answer. Example number 2, we have 17/20. We can do this several ways. The first way we can do this is by trying to make the denominator equal to 100. So if I was going to do that, what would I multiply 20 by to get 100? I would have to multiply by 5. So I could multiply and get 100 in the denominator, multiply 17 by 5 and get 35/8. So we could have 85/100 or 85%. So this is the first way you can solve it, by getting the denominator equal to 0. Or equal to 10, or 100, sorry. So what if I wanted to do it by dividing instead of changing the denominator? Let's see if we'll get the same answer if we do that. So if I divided 17 divided by 20, I'd see how many times does 17 or 20 go into 17? No times, so we're going to have to add a decimal and a 0. Now, how many times does 20 go into 170? Goes in 8 times. So we're going to have 8 times 20, which is going to give you 160. You're going to subtract, and you're going to get 0. Bring this down. And then 5 times 20 is going to give you 100. Subtract, you're going to get a remainder of 0. So now we have 0.85. So this is 85 hundredths is our decimal form. So now we're going to go ahead and make it a percent by moving the decimal. So you just move your decimal 2 times to the right and you see that it is 85%. So whether this way is easier for you by making the denominator equal to 100, or if dividing is easier for you, then whatever way it takes, whatever way you do it, it's going to give you the same answer. So, all right, now we're going to go ahead and go from a percent and make it into a simplified fraction or a simplified ratio. So we have 40%. So if they give you the number in percent form, you can just put it over 100. So 40% is 40 over 100, and then we can go ahead and start simplifying. So since they both end in 0, I know they're both divisible by 10, so I'm going to divide a 10 out of both. So if I divide a 10 out of both the numerator and the denominator, I'm going to be left with 4 over 10. And now I'm going to go ahead, I see that they have a 2 in common, so I'm going to divide that out as well. I'm going to divide by 2, and we're going to have 2/5. So basically, 40% is a percentage form, and then the fraction form or the ratio form is 2/5. All right, let's go ahead and change 6% to a fraction, a simplified fraction or a simplified ratio. So they gave us a number in percent form. So all we have to do is put that number over 100 to get our fraction. So 6 over 100. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start simplifying. I see that they're both divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide a 2 out of both. So if I divide 6 by 2, I'm going to be left with 3 in the numerator. If I divide by 2 in the denominator, I'm left with 50. So 3 over 50 is your simplified form. Alright, let's go ahead and look at a little word problem and see if we can figure out what to do. It says, in a small piece of mozzarella cheese, 17 out of 25 calories come from fat. What percent of the calories are from fat? So basically, they gave us 17 out of 25 calories. So that will show us the number in ratio form. So we'll have 17 out of 25. So now what we're going to do is put it in percent form. So you could do this the 2 ways. Remember, you could divide, or you could get the denominator equal to 100. Now in this case, I know that 25 goes evenly into 100, so I'm going to go ahead and do that one, because I feel like that would be easier for me. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 4, because 25 times 4 is going to give you 100. 100 in the denominator, and then we do 17 times 4. 7 times 4 gives you 28. 4 times 1 gives you 4, 5, 6. 68. So you have 68 over 100, or 68%. So, anytime you get your number over 100, remember the numerator, just make that your percent. Alright. Okay, so obviously if you didn't understand any of this, you can go ahead and rewind and watch again. You can also go into your book and look at more examples. And as always, you can bring your questions to class tomorrow, and I'll be happy to answer those. Let's go ahead and do some on your own questions.
Alright, you have 5 problems to do for me. These first 3 problems, just go ahead and turn that fraction or ratio into a percent. So your final answer should be in percent form. These last 2 problems, go ahead and take the percent form and change it into a fraction. And make sure your fraction is as simplified as can be. Alright, good luck. We'll see what you get tomorrow.